Fighting games can be heaven or hell. They're cool, they're exciting, they're difficult to play. I am a fighting game noob who was enraptured by stories like Arslan and Ash in Tekken and Justin Wong vs Daigo in Street Fighter. And I wanted to play too. I had played some Tekken 2 and 3 as a child back in the 90s and had good memories of beating my sister, so I downloaded Tekken 7 and gave it a go and lost a lot. I decided to go back to basics and search for good fighting games for beginners. Maybe that's how you found this video, also looking for a fighting game to get you into the genre. Here's my experience with several games I saw widely recommended online. Let's start with Footsies. The term Footsies refers to a part of play in many fighting games, essentially the two players moving towards and away from each other, each daring the other to strike first and potentially miss and be punished. This part of the game is important and often not obvious to beginners. Footsies the game demonstrates just this element of the genre. It's extremely simple with just two directions and one attack button. It has a straightforward tutorial and some nice tutorial mini-games. The mobile version even has a funky one phone two player mode. To get the most out of it, you will ideally have someone to play with. It's definitely worth a go. The best thing for the lone gamer is the mini-games, which demonstrate some principles that apply to all fighting games, and they show frame counts which make it clear why you have failed. This is better than some other games tutorials or challenges where I'm not sure if I have failed because of timing or because of some other aspect of execution like pressing the wrong button. I'll mention one of those later. Footsies was made by one person, originally just as a fun side project, but it got some actual attention and traction within the fighting game community, which motivated the developer to take it to quite a polished level for such a small game. There are free and paid versions of Footsies on PC and mobile. Tough Love Arena is simple, but not as simple as Dive Kick or Footsies. There's enough here that it's a small but full fighting game, not just a gimmick or learning tool. One of the developers, a fighting game lover, talks about how he tried to make it as simple as possible while still being fun for him to play. I think those two goals sum it up. It's trying to be as accessible as possible to noobs without making it any less fun for experienced fighting game players who might want to get into it more deeply. It's made almost entirely by just two people who put a lot of energy into the community with regular tournaments and updates to the game. There's a great small community on Discord to get involved with, play against and learn from. There's a basics and an advanced part of the tutorial, plus guides for each character which are really handy, as well as combo trials. The game is simple enough that you can do the basics tutorial in just a few minutes and know enough to have some fun, but there are enough mechanics that once you're comfortable with the basics, there's plenty more to get your teeth into. This can give you a real sense of progression. It feels like a friendly way to get to grips with some principles that will hold you in good stead if you move on to more complex fighting games, whilst providing an incredibly complete experience in its own right, coming from such a small team. Tough Love Arena is completely free and entirely based in the browser. You can play on a computer, but it also works surprisingly well on mobile. Dive Kick has two buttons, and I mean two buttons. No D-pad involved, not two direction buttons plus an attack button like Footsies. There are actually just two buttons. In a nutshell, one button jumps and the other sends you back to earth, kicking at your opponent. One clean kick wins you the round. There are a few more mechanics to it and a range of characters which do play surprisingly differently for such a simple game. The tutorial is just written text rather than something playable, and there's no concept of combos or combo trials in this game. Dive Kick is an incredibly quick game to pick up and play, even for the noobest of noobs, and I had a few hours of fun playing through the silly story mode and playing versus a friend. Is it a good introduction to fighting games? In a way, despite its accessibility, I think it's more interesting for someone with some existing experience of playing fighting games. Footsies presents a stripped bare core of a fighting game. Tough Love Arena is the simplest experience, which is still a full and fun fighting game, but Dive Kick is something else. A parodic deconstruction of fighting games that prompts us to question what really makes a fighting game. A bit of prior knowledge of the genre makes this deconstruction more interesting. Dive Kick is usually under £5 and available on various PlayStation platforms, Xbox One and PC. If you find it even cheaper in a sale, I would recommend picking it up. Fantasy Strike goes straight into the tutorial when you boot up the game for the first time. It covers the basics, showing that the game has quite simple controls. The first time I tried this, I found the combo part of the tutorial really frustrating. I think I was pressing one of the buttons too slowly, but the game didn't tell me that this was why I was failing. As a mega noob at the time, I didn't realise what was going on and had to go online and get some advice from a stranger. This was really off-putting. Booting it up again months later for this video, I couldn't find the tutorial anywhere. It turns out to replay it, you find it in the Watch menu. This is quite a small thing, but as Josh Strife Hayes calls them, this could turn into a quit moment for some beginners. Once you're through the tutorial, there's not a lot of other learning materials. There are several single player modes, such as Boss Rush and an arcade mode that include little bits of story. This leaves you to learn by doing, or playing. There's quite a fun mix of characters with different mechanics and features. The gameplay feels relatively slow, which makes it less stressful for the noob trying desperately to figure out what buttons to press and when. However, I have to say that something about it is just a little bit less fun than the others in this list. Like Tough Love Arena, Fantasy Strike is more than a gimmick. It is a relatively full fighting game, but it feels less like a serious fighting game pared down and more like a Fisher-Price fighting game to me. Yes, it's really accessible and will teach you some of the fundamentals of fighting games, but I just feel like Tough Love Arena is a bit more accessible and does a slightly better job of teaching the fundamentals and is a little more fun. Fantasy Strike does have more varied characters and single player modes though, which might capture some people's interest better. This is just my opinion, and I know some people love Fantasy Strike and have a great time playing it for thousands of hours. Fantasy Strike is free to play on Steam, PS4 and Switch. Under Night in Birth is either a series or a game with lots of iterations depending on how you look at it. I've seen it widely recommended for beginners because it has a thorough tutorial, and I agree, it felt very comfortable to pick up and play, and there are loads of tutorials for getting to grips with further aspects of the game, as well as combo trials. It is not made specifically for beginners like a lot of the other games on this list, but the developers have done a great job of making it accessible while retaining plenty of depth. What you learn in this game will also carry over well to other fighting games, especially other anime fighters such as Guilty Gear, which share some DNA with Under Night. There's a proper numbered sequel coming out soon, and in the meantime the most recent edition is often available cheap on sale and is well worth giving a go. You can start to have fun very quickly, even as a noob. It also has an enthusiastic community on Discord where you can find advice and sparring partners. The latest version, which I think is pronounced Under Night in Birth Executable Late Clear, is available on Switch, PS4 and PC. The full price is around £30 and it can of course be found much cheaper in sales. Street Fighter 6 is the newest iteration of the legendary franchise and it is packed full of content, including for beginners. It has extensive tutorials and combo trials, but it has something unique too, the World Tour mode. This is essentially a full single player game with hours of content. This will teach you the game while you do missions and learn to fight with your own avatar, and there is a pretty flexible character creator for this. I think what makes a really big difference with this is that it's engaging. You want to play through it because it's a game that you are playing through. It doesn't feel like homework or training for the sake of getting good so that you can then go on to play a game. It is its own game and it's a fun one at that. On top of World Tour, you have what you'd expect from a Street Fighter game, a cracking roster and fun competitive gameplay from beginner levels to $1 million professional competitions. It's beautiful, it's fun, it's got great introductory tools, and it has depth. Street Fighter is known for its motion inputs, unlike most of the beginner-specific games in this list. You might be doing quarter circles and inputs like that, which many beginners find tricky or intimidating. Street Fighter 6 includes these, but it also has an alternative input mode called Modern. Modern controls are simplified and take a lot of the difficulty out of executing your attacks, with very few limitations on what you're able to do as a result. There are many challenging aspects of fighting games aside from motion inputs. Modern controls don't take any of those away, but it makes space for you to focus on learning the other aspects of the game without the frustration of your thumb lacking the complex muscle memory for a dragon punch. It's also handy for those of us playing on controllers without the most precise D-pads in the world, such as the PS5's DualSense. Overall, Street Fighter 6 has a lot going for it. Loads of ways to learn built into the game, it's lovely to look at, and it has great fighting game community heritage. You can get on at the ground floor and the sky is the limit. One downside is that it's the most expensive game on this list, being a new AAA release. Street Fighter 6 is on PS4 and PS5, Xbox Series consoles and Windows. It's around £50 to £55 and still really new, so don't expect any heavy discounts in the near future. So what game got me over the initial frustrating few hours and motivated me to keep playing for weeks and months? Actually, none of the games in this list. The game that got me was Guilty Gear Strive. It has an okay tutorial and not great single player content, but I had a friend who was willing to play it with me, and that was crucial. My broad advice would be to play what your friends want to play if you have any friends interested in fighting games. Whether they are noobs starting with you or more experienced players who can give you advice on where you're going wrong, having someone to play with can be a huge motivator to push through the many rage quit moments that fighting games offer and get to the sense of satisfaction and gradual skill improvement that make it such a rewarding genre. Another piece of advice I've seen a lot is just play what you think looks cool. That is a great point. If there's a character you identify with, or a game with aesthetics that you love, you might be able to overlook how bad you are at the beginning because you're just happy to be there. One thing I would recommend is to go on YouTube and watch the top 6 or top 8s of loads of different fighting game tournaments. See which games look the most fun to you, or which stories you engage with and want to be a part of. You can play Footsies, Fantasy Strike and Tough Love Arena for free, so they are well worth a try, whether you spend a few minutes or get sucked in for years. Have fun, don't forget to block, and I will see you online.